So let's allow ourselves to settle here today. Just noticing the weight of the breath, weight of the body rather, settling with the breath. Noticing the sensations that you feel as the breath expands and ripples through the body. Let the sensory experience of the breath bring you more in touch with sensations, with the sensory world. And as that happens, it's quite natural for the dominance of the mind to fade. And so, for the first bit here, just reminding ourselves as often as we need to pay attention to what is actually happening, which essentially is just your senses and your sensations. That's all that's really happening in the moment. Any kind of analysis or distraction tends to be coming from the past or the future. You may notice a little bit of a battle going on, particularly in the early moments of meditation, with this enticement towards the contents of the mind. And perhaps even a disinterest in what is happening in the body and the senses and sensations. In some ways, you could say that it's the most sane thing to do, to come into the experience of senses and sensation, because we are consciously choosing to find out what is actually happening. So, in this moment, what is actually happening is the breath is the way that it is. The body feels the way that it does. Kind of an overall sense, but also more specific details of the body, areas of comfort and relative discomfort, warmth or cold. Fatigue or aliveness. And we're just noticing, not needing to do anything with what it is that we're noticing. You can also notice the general contents of the mind, the things that are drawing us in. And in that moment, as we do that, also recognizing our choice to not engage with them. We might notice some emotional flavor in our experience. And we notice that amidst all of these details of our current moment experience, including what we're hearing, what we're smelling, what we're seeing, whether eyes closed or open, amidst all of that, there is one thing that's not changing, and that is this observer, this witness, this perceiver that is simply aware. And it's able to be simply aware of our whole experience, including the contents of the mind. So this is a very important step to disengaging from the contents of the mind, to notice there's something here that is noticing the never-ending flow of commentary and evaluation and thought moving through the mental territory. This place is where we can recognize that we have a mind, but that we are not our mind, that we have a body, but that we are not our body, that we have feelings and emotions, sensory experiences, but that we are not our feelings, emotions, or sensory experiences. There's something else here beyond all of that. So today we're going to explore when eating is out of control. And so perhaps just me saying that has brought to mind your recent relationship with food, or maybe it's a long-standing relationship with food, with moments of more ease and flow in our eating, and also times of struggle and seemingly being out of control. So just allow any images, any feelings to show up as you allow your relationship with food to come into the foreground here. You may notice tensions arise in your body. You may notice thoughts arising, beliefs around what you should and shouldn't be eating. You may notice feelings and emotions arise as well. And so just let all of that, the constellation that is associated with your relationship with food, your constellation of details, to come into focus. And see if you can allow it to come into focus from the perspective of presence, of awareness, of an observer, that you can really kind of take a step back so that you can become available to a pure experience of what your relationship with food is at this time, without any added analysis. So as always, we just start where we are, and it takes a willingness to simply be truthful, curious, humble, open, respectful of this moment. A willingness to consider that perhaps there is nothing wrong with my relationship with food in this moment. Perhaps this is part of the healing of my relationship with food and my body and my health. So we open to it without any preconceived ideas. Raw, uncensored. So the first thing to acknowledge is that when we use a phrase like my eating is out of control, it means that it is falling out of the bounds of what we believe we should be eating. Otherwise, we would just eat what we eat and there would be no added evaluation. So for the purpose of this meditation, we're going to let go of any belief around what it is that we should or shouldn't be eating, in order to allow us into territories of our being, like the body, the feelings, the emotions, the energy field, that might hold insight for us, that might hold guidance, that might hold important soul lessons that are being reflected back to us through our relationship with food. And if we keep going back to what we should or shouldn't be eating, it actually robs us of that experience of the wisdom of these other parts of our being, of these other ways of knowing. Many, if not all of us, may notice that when we drop in this phrase, our eating being out of control, or even just the single word food, we may notice that the body is contracting in various places. And this is what we do when we believe that things are out of control. So the first thing I would like to encourage you to do is to soften. So where you're feeling that sense of clenching and trying to control and manage, see if you can notice where that's happening in the body and bring awareness there. And an invitation to softening. Where there is contraction and clenching, is it possible to invite softening, slowing down, settling? And simultaneously, where we notice these contractions that generally come along with trying to control something, can we bring a curiosity, an openness, a welcoming attitude? So is it possible to both let the contraction be here as well as open to the possibility of softening? The two can coexist. And as the system begins to soften, we may notice more subtle sensations related to our emotional being or our energy being that are beginning to rise to the surface. So the contraction is all about keeping things beneath the surface. And so as we invite the grosser body to soften, the more subtle energies related to emotions and energies may begin to surface. And often when eating does get out of control, it's these very energies that we are trying to suppress through the eating. And so here in this moment, we have this wonderful opportunity as a community to explore perhaps emotions that have been bubbling to the surface to be liberated in you, but that you've been managing with certain foods or eating habits, which is, of course, very innocent because our whole culture does it without too much questioning. So it's a very innocent habit that we have. And so here, as we slow down, what generally happens when emotions arise and we reach for food, as we slow it down and we rely on the support of our own presence, but also of the collective presence of community, we can make space for emotions that have likely been bubbling up recently for you. It's an ongoing unfolding. The body is constantly letting go of energies that up until now have not been integrated or digested. And in our day-to-day life, we often don't quite seem to have enough space, enough capacity to slow down and presence. And so we reach, and oftentimes we reach for food. So it's an actual opportunity and portal into a greater spaciousness around our emotional being, and also a recognition that our system is just very innocently wanting to liberate certain emotions that may actually have been loosened up by better eating habits, by greater awareness and care of our body through food. So this is a very precious choice point here to soften, to allow whatever is bubbling to the surface. And you may find yourself in this kind of phase of, energies, emotions bubbling up, and then the contraction comes in. It's just a very strong nervous system habit. And just so let it do that for a while. You'll feel the contraction, the resistance, the battle kind of build up again, and then just notice it, allow it to soften. And then I invite you to lean back even more into that space of pure presence, pure awareness that can simply observe this movement, perhaps this back and forth, this contraction, relaxation, this flow of energy or emotion. It's just simply watching it, allowing yourself to rest there as you recognize the futility of continuing to be involved, as you witness for yourself the intelligence of the body to bring forth and to liberate that which doesn't serve. And so we'll spend the remainder of the meditation resting in and as presence,